So welcome everybody to the March SCAN meeting. My name is Jim Scheppke. I'm the Vice President of SCAN, and I'm chairing the meeting tonight in the absence of our president, Lori Walker, who sends her regrets, but she couldn't be with us tonight. So I was happy to step up and volunteer to chair. And I want to welcome everybody who's here tonight. I think we've got a crowded agenda, but I'm going to do my best to keep us on time and get us through it. So to begin, we have our minutes of February 9th to approve. There have been corrections made to the draft that went out by myself and John Christensen, and John Prodosky assures me that all the corrections have been made. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve.
Okay. And do I have a second? Roz, do you second? Okay, Roz.
I moved approval, but I was muted. So did somebody else do that?
Yeah, John moved his own minutes. That's how much he likes them. They're really good.
I don't know if the secretary can move approval, but maybe
Okay.
so. Why not? Okay, I'll
yeah,
second.
why not? Why not? Okay, are there any objections to approval of the minutes? Okay, I'm going to consider them to be unanimously approved. Thanks so much, everybody. So now, I've got to change my view here. So now we move on to counselor reports. And we're so pleased to have Counselor Vanessa Nordyke with us tonight. And I will turn it over to you for your report.
Good evening, one and all. It's great to be back. I'm sorry to have missed you all last month. I was out of state with my dad, my stepmom, and my sister. So I hope you'll forgive me that I prioritize spending time with family. So lots going on. So I will be jumping into our presentation shortly. I had one last edit I was going to make. So first of all, I want to wish all of you a great 2022 thus far. I don't know if any of you caught the Salem Capitals game, but it was pretty incredible. So let me get my presentation going. 1 second here. Okay, I'm going to present. Okay, here we go. Can you see this, the slideshow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. All right, so here's a snapshot of just some of the activities that I was up to for February and March. I recently toured Northwest Human Services. This is one of our partners in addressing homelessness, providing medical services and mental health services at no cost to a wide variety of people who are living on the margins. So it was great to meet Stephen Goins and to meet yet another community partner who is a part of the solution here in Salem. So we talked about a number of things, ways we might be able to collaborate in the future. But for now, it was just really important to start establishing that relationship with someone and some group that does so much good in the community. They currently provide, as I said, medical and mental health services. They work in partnership with some of the shelters in town or affordable housing options so that people can get a shuttle service directly to their clinic. Because as we know, a lot of people who are homeless don't have stable transportation either. So it was really great to meet them. Some other highlights, and I won't read all of them off verbatim. We had our work session on the city manager recruitment process. We kicked off the Salem Capitals inaugural season. We had the Aquina Hall groundbreaking and a number of other things that are shown on your screen. So let's dive into the presentation in greater detail. Now, first, I want to make sure you're all aware that we have a variety of city boards and commissions that depend on you, the citizens of Salem, for volunteer service. On your screen are just a few of the boards and commissions that have vacancies right now. The Police Review Board, Airport Advisory Board, Budget Committee, Library Advisory Board, and HRC, that would be the Human Resources, excuse me, the Human Rights Commission, excuse me. If you want, I can drop in the chat after my presentation the link to the city webpage where you can apply. But I have to tell you folks, these are important positions. They're not only leadership pipelines, they're not only great ways for you to understand the inner workings of government, but every single one of these boards and commissions make powerful sets of recommendations to council and to city staff. So I know that we've talked a lot about public safety and policing here at SCAN, and we have vacancies on the police review board. So I would consider applying to that. Budget committee, that is one of our most important committees because the budget committee recommends how we spend all of our money. Do we spend it on our libraries? Do we spend it on our parks? Do we spend it on addressing homelessness? Do we spend it on new fire trucks? These are all valid questions. And our budget committee is comprised of equal parts members of the public and the council. That's right, the council does not have a majority vote. So it is a critically important option. And these are just some of the boards and commissions that have vacancies right now. Okay, Salem Capitals basketball. Yours truly appeared on behalf of the city of Salem at the kickoff on Friday night. We had about 1,200 people there for opening night, which is absolutely fantastic. Considering that the stadium can seat about 2,000 people, the fact that we already have a majority of the seats filled on our opening night, where a lot of people don't even know it's a thing, this is a big deal. I'm really excited about this because this is a great way to build community. Seats are just $5 for kids, seniors, and military personnel. General admission is $10. I saw people of all ages and all backgrounds gathering together, putting aside politics and all the other controversial topics of the day to come together and support a home team. And that is a wonderful, wonderful way to get to know our neighbors, to get out of the house, and to have family-friendly fun. They also, and I can tell you, a lot of the kids were having a great time. There were people posting videos of their kids dancing in the seats. They had a halftime, like little dance-off thing going on that was all ages. They had concessions. I absolutely loved it. And it's just another way to build economic opportunity as well. All right, so I was recently appointed to the Travel Salem Board of Directors on behalf of the city. And Travel Salem is dedicated to getting, frankly, as many events here to the city of Salem, getting as much tourism to the city of Salem, and so on. At the most recent board meeting, the director, Angie, I know I'm gonna butcher her name, Aniuchi. I'm so happy Angie isn't here, so I can't be too embarrassed, but their executive director told us that the Ironman is coming back next year, and they've already sold out all the tickets for athletes. And they're gonna have 1,000 more athletes coming this July compared with last July. So very exciting. There are so many other cultural and sporting events that are happening in Salem. And so this morning I met with a group of people. It's a Salem Youth Sports Alliance group. We have a working title, if you will. And we want to get as many kids physically active as possible. And the way we do that is not only supporting the existing athletic programs offered in our school district, but additional programming as well. I mean, let's face it, I don't know if you were me, but if you tried out for some of the sports teams in high school, maybe you didn't make the team. So what do if you don't make the team? You still want to play. You still want opportunities to make friends. You still want to learn skills. You still want to compete. And from what I hear, our school district, we have far more kids who want to play than we have seats available on our basketball team, our swim teams, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to work with folks like the Capitol Football Club, Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, and others to see what we can do to bring more competitions here, more tournaments here, and to find more opportunities to get kids outside playing. All right. Also in February, we had the groundbreaking ceremony for Yaquina Hall. I love these proverbial politician photo shoots are hilarious to me. The photo ops, I kind of love them. I'm not going to lie. So we had the proverbial golden shovels, of course, And right behind us is Yaquina Hall, which is just one of the facilities on the Oregon State Hospital campus. Many of you know that decades ago, Ronald Reagan, our president at the time, cut funding at the federal level for mental health services and facilities. And over the decades that followed, that funding just never came back. And unfortunately, we have a lot of folks today who are in mental health crisis, who do not have a place to live, do not have a place where someone can make sure they're taking their medication, someone who can check in on them. And so part of the Yaquina Hall property is that it's not just housing for people experiencing homelessness. We will have beds set aside specifically for people with severe mental illness. If you see some of those folks on the street who look lost and confused, folks who have a lot of garbage around them, a lot of these individuals are suffering from a mental illness. They need help. So I'm so happy to see us breaking ground on this project, which was years in the making. In fact, you might recognize this woman here. That's former Mayor Anna Peterson. It was under former Mayor Anna Peterson's administration that we initiated the effort to get Yaquina Hall. That's how long it has taken this project just to get to this point. And Yaquina Hall is still under construction. It's still being renovated. So we can't even fill those beds just yet. But from everything I know from talking with the Salem Housing Authority staff, we will have no difficulty filling every single one. All right. Excuse me. Recently, City Council passed a resolution to urge Congress to lead the global effort to reduce the threat of nuclear war. I want to thank a local resident, Peter Burgell, who brought this resolution to us. The timing for it was perfect because of the war and the atrocities and the murder of innocent men, women, and children happening in Ukraine as we speak. That resolution passed unanimously. It's a small effort that we can take to show our support for innocent people who just want to live in a safe and peaceful world. Okay. We also voted recently to expand our self-sufficiency program. The self-sufficiency program is a 5-year voluntary program, and it basically connects people to housing, and in exchange, they need to have an ability and a willingness to work. So here are just some of the work-related services that are available to people who participate in this program. Things like trade school apprenticeships, credit counseling, vocational training, and so on. So we voted to increase this program because it's been extremely effective, and we want to help everybody who wants help. I want to be able to give them that help. All right. Now next, we voted recently to support a bike lane project. I know if Councillor Anderson were here, he would love to tell you guys all about this, given what a cycling enthusiast he is. So basically on your screen, you'll see in this thick black line, this is the bike lane project. And it starts on Commercial Street. This is Commercial here. It starts right above Rural Avenue. And we're going to construct a buffered bike lane and a new bicycle signal south of Alice Avenue, so with a pedestrian crossing with a flashing beacon at Triangle Drive Southeast. So this is very exciting. This is just one of the many ways in which we can incentivize people to ride their bicycles and to help people safely use their bicycles. All right. We also voted recently to expand the strategic project grant program. We have a lot of grant programs in town for small businesses and local businesses. This one is very specific in nature. This is for any downtown business owner who wants to invest in building improvements for crime prevention, security, and safety. So for example, you can ask for a grant to invest in better fencing or exterior lighting or security cameras. And the nice thing about this particular grant, there's no match required. You don't have to pony up your own money, but you do have to meet all the other criteria. So if you have more questions about that, I posted the link on my Facebook page, and I encourage you to follow up on that. Next, council voted to direct city staff to issue a report to reduce the speed limit in certain neighborhoods from 25 to 20 miles per hour. All we did was tell staff to write up a report to see what it would take to get this done and what the fiscal impact would be. That report has not come back yet, so I don't have additional information for you right now, but I was pleased to support this motion from Councilor Stapleton. All right, and I will stop there. The rest, I think I covered at a prior meeting. So any questions for me, folks?
We're now open for questions. Raise your hand, please, if you have a question for the counselor. I'll call him myself. Counselor, what can you tell us about the recruitment for the new city manager?
Thank you, Jim. So at our work session recently, what we have done is we have put out the application. We have hired a private recruiting firm that has worked with other cities around the state of Oregon to help recruit, attract, and hire a person who is suitable for this position. I forget the name of the firm, but they've worked with like the city of Gresham, maybe Beaverton, and so on. Now, I met one-on-one with them before this work session and shared a lot of things with them that I thought would be helpful in finding our next city manager. And at the work session itself, we shared additional, I would say, wish list items. I can tell you that I'm looking for an outside the box kind of thinker. Sometimes the city staff, fairly or unfairly, gets a reputation as being the party of no. The party of, well, we've never done things this way, so it will never work. Or we don't have the data, so we don't know whether it would be a good idea. Hey, I'm in government. I understand that mentality. I've come across it plenty of times myself. So I want someone who is innovative, someone who brings fresh energy to this position. There's a couple other things that I'm really interested in. From an equity perspective, we need a city manager who is culturally competent, who understands that we have 90 languages spoken in our school system, that we have refugees coming to Salem from all over the world, that we have people experiencing homelessness who don't interact with people the way that you and I do. That takes someone who is a superb listener. And I also suggested, although I wouldn't call this a mandatory job requirement, I would love to find someone who has experience in volunteering with persons experiencing homelessness. Have you ever been to a homeless camp where you weren't there just to shut it down? Have you ever worked in a soup kitchen? Have you ever talked to homeless people? Do you know what it's, have you ever served in a shelter and seen people come in and express joy because they just got a job at McDonald's and everyone in the room cheers because someone is making progress? That, by the way, is a true story. That happened when I volunteered at a shelter. So frankly, there's a member on council who is called persons experiencing homelessness vagrants. And that is not helpful. That's a great way to dehumanize people, to marginalize them, and it sure doesn't get anything done. So I'm going to be listening very carefully when we get to the candidates, when we finally have a slate of people that we're ready to consider hiring. I want to be listening very carefully to their language. And if I have time, I'd love to do a little research to find out how they've handled homelessness in their respective city. Other things that I care about and that a number of other counselors are concerned with is the prospective city manager's approach to climate action. Do they believe in it? Do they think we should take responsibility for it? Do they see this as our duty to address climate change, especially in communities like parts of Northeast Salem, where we have food deserts and we don't have enough trees or parks or safe places to walk? So these are just some of the things that we are looking at. I have helped, I'm an employment lawyer by trade. So this is something I know a thing or two about. I have seen hiring processes unfold. I have been on the other side of the table where I helped hire a CEO myself for the Oregon State Bar. I've done performance reviews for executive directors. So I have a lot of high expectations for this position because whoever is the new city manager, he or she and their staff make 99% of the decisions in city government. City council, we set vision and policy, and occasionally we tell them specifically what they need to do. But for the most part, the city manager runs the show. So it's going to be a critically important decision. So stay tuned.
Thank you, Counselor. Other questions for Counselor Nordike? Please raise your hand. I'm not seeing any. Thought Victor was going to raise his hand, but he didn't. Do you want to raise your hand, Victor?
It's not a question, it's more a comment about 20 is 20. Please don't be shocked when the price tag for the 20 is plenty comes back high. It's expensive to replace those signs. They're not small, and there are a lot of them.
Thank you, Victor. I appreciate that. The sticker shock is a thing. By the way, folks, I did put in the chat the link to current board and commission openings through the city. Please do consider applying. Most of them, if not all of them, are still meeting remotely. So it's a good way to give back.
Any other questions for our counselor while she's here? I don't see any hands. Well, thank you so much. You always give the most informative reports, and we really, really appreciate. You're like the hardest working counselor. I think so. I think so. That's my opinion.
Well, thank you, Jim. My colleagues work very hard, and I
know that.
You know, that's very sweet of you to say. Well, folks, you know how to get a hold of me. Follow me on Facebook if you're not already. I got a lot of followers now, and I want more followers all the time so I can help get the message out. Nobody knows what the city does. You know, nobody. You guys know because you take the time to inform yourselves. So please help me share, learn, and get feedback from people. So thank you all. Have a great night. See you next month. Bye.
Bye, Counselor. Thanks. Okay, great. Well, we're 5 minutes ahead of schedule. How about that? And I don't see Counselor Anderson. So I believe I will move to the next agenda item. And we do have Sergeant Hardy here from the Salem Police Department, and I will turn the program over to him. I said I'd give him 5 minutes. And if there's questions, I'll give you 10. How about that? So take it away.
All right. Sergeant Hardy, Salem Police. For those who haven't met me, I'm the administrative sergeant, and I'm happy to be here. So I put in the chat box there some links to make it a little quicker and easier. The talking points for our March association meetings have to do with the concerns about homelessness resource website, where you can click on that link that's in there or cut and paste it, and it'll take you to an area where you can post some concerns or thoughts that you have, and things that you see that are occurring within the city. The Salem Police Department strategic plan, their 3-year strategic plan, came out, and the link is listed there to it. They did a lot of work putting that together, and there's a lot of good information in there. It really kind of, I think, paints a good picture, kind of a police department State of the Union type document, but it also in there, I'm gonna click on it right now, and it goes over a lot of different things like the survey that was done. It goes over the like a message from the chief, our mission, vision, and values, what our strategic priorities are, our safety priorities, talks about legitimacy, excellence, and then some resources and things like that. It's really well done. We're very blessed to have Chief Womack. He's really kind of just taken the bull by the horns, for lack of a better term, and really jumped into this full force and working with the community and talking with different community action groups and trying to really build that collaboration that we talk about, which is one of our values now that he has changed in collaborating with the public. The other thing that's there is the Salem Police Trust Building portal. That link there will take you actually to the City of Salem page. And if you scroll, or a police page, if you scroll down to the bottom, in the bottom right, there's a drop down that says Trust Building with Community, and there's different things that you can click on there. And so that's another good resource to just kind of learn more about the police department, learn more about, you know, us working with community, getting feedback from you all. And then finally, the last part is body worn camera program. So the funding for the body worn cameras has come through. And so they're going to, right now, we are working with several manufacturers doing some T&Es. And we're going, the first one should be out rolling here next week, I think. And it'll be with Motorola. It will involve the in-car video as well as body worn cameras. And we'll trial that for a period of time. Then there's another company called GTAC, and I can't remember what the third company is. But I'm involved with that with my lieutenant, and looking at what the kind of the best program is going to be, keeping in mind being fiscally responsible, but also getting the best technology that we can. So yeah, really excited about these things. We have a lot of officers that are very excited about the body worn cameras. We've had much of our membership that has asked for that for a long, long time, to have that, because I think it's a good system to have. It's a good way to just be able to play a video and say, this is what happened. And I think it keeps everybody kind of honest, and I think it's good for everybody, the police department, community, everybody. So that is the really quick, down and dirty, less than 5 minutes time frame for what we have. And I'm open to questions. So
Thank you, Sergeant.
yes,
I
sir.
see Roz has a question.
On the cameras, you may have said this and I might have missed it, but would those also include in-car cameras? I know there's been discussion of both the in-car camera and the body-worn cameras.
Yeah, the program is primarily body-worn camera, but we are testing the in-car videos as well. But I think the main desire of the public was the body-worn cameras. But we are trialing the in-car system as well, kind of as a package deal, and seeing what we can do to kind of meet both requirements. The in-car video system that we had was very limited, and the support of it was just not very good. And so these ones that we're looking at with Motorola and GTAC's a company that we currently use for all of our in-car computers and laptops and stuff like that. So they're really well known and have a lot of good equipment. So
Can I do a real quick follow-up?
Yes.
you can do anything you want.
I heard that state government was providing grant funds to local police departments for body cameras. Is that where the funds we're using for this? Or?
I honestly don't know. I can ask and find out where that came from. I do know that the big push on it was as a requirement, or not a requirement, but a desire of the community. And the funding was, I think, pulled through our own city funds, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a combination of both. So.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions for Sergeant Hardy? Raise your hand, please. I see John Prohatsky.
Excuse me. It appears that one of the focuses of Chief Womack and the Salem Police Department is developing community trust. In conversations with the Salem Kaiser Interfaith Network concerning the Reawaken America tour that's going to be held, April 1st and 2nd. Part of the discussion was the Interfaith Hospitality Network should not coordinate with the police department or ask them what they're going to do to protect the public, because the BIPOC community if we did that, the BIPOC community, basically we would be burning our bridges with the BIPOC community because they don't trust the police department. And is the Salem Police Department aware of that dynamic? And how do they plan to address it?
I know that we have a lot of communications and open meetings. The chief has had several open meetings with several representatives of the BIPOC community. And so it's definitely very high on our list, is working through that trust building and having those open communications. And that was part of the survey and part of kind of what came out of our strategic plan, was working with them to kind of draft that together. The strategic plan was really a collaborative work of the police department, community members, and the like to build that trust. Speaking to what you were talking about whether you work with the police department or not, I don't know that I can really make that decision for you all, and I don't know that there's anything that we can do right now to if there's mistrust there, it's not going to be changed overnight, right? And so that is going to be a long-term project and a long-term thing that we will work on. I will tell you, having been the team leader for the team that deals with large crowd events for almost 13 years, and a state level trainer, I will tell you that these events always go just exponentially or much better when there's open communication and we work together to have a successful event. Our goal has always been to provide everybody's First Amendment right and their ability to provide, or our ability to provide for them just a safe space to give their own opinions and their free speech, whether we agree with them or not. It is really not what the Constitution asks us to do, right? It asks us to provide you a platform for your speech and your opinion to be provided. And so we don't pick sides in that, but what we would like to see is that as you give that free speech, as you give that opinion, that you're not trampling on the rights of other people, such as blocking streets, such as damaging buildings, such as doing things that really trample on the rights of other people. So free speech is something that should be free. You should be able to say how you feel, and as long as you're not doing anything to hinder other people or hurt other people, then that's what that was built there for. So,
yeah, the main concern is not during the event, but afterwards when people are in the community. Given the list of speakers, we feel that people be energized and might even look for trouble. And does the police department have any plans in place to address that potential situation?
So we do the best we can to anticipate these events. We do the best that we can to monitor communications, open source communications, to see if there's going to be problems, to see if there's going to be issues or concerns or confrontations. But realistically, a lot of what we get is through working with the event coordinators and working with other people that show up to maybe counter that. And when we have that open communication, sometimes we can dispel the maybe misconceptions or maybe confusion, or verify or not verify, or provide guidelines and parameters for having a successful event. Mr. Is it Prohodsky? Prohodsky. I've been around a long time. You've been around a long time. Here's what I will tell you. You can never walk through this world without upsetting somebody.
True.
You're going to upset somebody. And the question is what is your main goal? Do you want to have a successful event? Understanding that your event has, it has a goal. It has a something that you're trying to accomplish. And in that, you're not always going to make everybody happy. And so the question is how much do you want to, shelter yourself, and how much do you want to maybe not say because you don't want to have on that. That really has to, that's on the community event organizer. And that's really where that comes from. I can't dictate that. I can't really help with that, but we can provide ourselves to be there, to be a presence. And I will, like I said before, communication is just, it's always the better option in my mind, because it just allows for just a really smooth event and getting things done. And here's the thing, you could communicate with us and people will make assumptions about you, and you can not communicate with us and people will still make assumptions about you based on what you say, what you do, and how you present yourself. And that's the unfortunate part of where we are as a society, I think, is that's where we're at. Everybody makes assumptions about everybody else, but nobody actually does what I always ask people to do, is to seek first to clarify, right? So I can make the assumption that because you wear your glasses on your head, that means you don't like to wear your glasses. But that's an assumption that I'm making. Yeah. Maybe if I asked you why you do that, then I would learn something, and that's what we don't do. And that's the unfortunate part. But I'm preaching to the choir, I'm sure. So
Yeah, and the main thing is,
John. We
I
need
just
to
want
move
to say
on.
thank you. I really
John.
appreciate.
John, I want to make a suggestion. Sergeant Hardy has graciously put his email address in the chat.
Oh, I plan to follow up.
So yeah, if you or anybody has more questions, it sounds like Sergeant Hardy is very willing to engage with us, which is terrific. So
yeah,
thank you, Sergeant Hardy.
I emailed directly with Miss Walker, and I had one just recently, and so
Okay.
I'm happy to answer emails as I can. So
That's great. Well, thanks so much, and thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you. You all take care.
Okay, so
All right.
we're going to move on to the main event, which is Ashley Hamilton from Arches. But before we do that, I would like to introduce my friend who just joined us, Linda Nishioka, who is waving to everybody. And if you don't know, Linda, a longtime SCAN resident, filed on yesterday to run for Salem City Council in Ward 2, our ward. And she was the only one to file. So I think it's safe to say that she's going to be our next city councilor. And I'm really pleased with that, because I think she'll just be a tremendous counselor for us. So Linda, we're going to have a candidate forum next month. So we're going to invite you back, and you can give us your stump speech next month, okay?
I have a month to work on it then.
Yeah, right. All right, it better be good.
Oh no, you're already setting me up, Jim.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for coming tonight. We're really all very glad to see you.
I thank you for giving me so much support and encouragement, and I'll look forward to talking more next month. But for now, I'll listen.
Great. Okay, now I just better check in. We don't have anybody from parole and probation, right? No. Okay. We do have Ashley Hamilton. I see her face. And Ashley, we're very glad to have you tonight. Ashley is the project director for Arches, and she does a terrific job in working to try to address our homeless crisis here in Salem. She's been doing that now for a long time. She's maybe the most knowledgeable about that than anyone. So we're very pleased to have you tonight. We're going to give you 10 minutes. Is that enough time?
I will certainly do my best.
Okay, we can give you a little more if you need it.
All right.
But anyway, I'm going to turn it over to you, Ashley, and I understand you have a PowerPoint to show.
I do, yes.
And then I see we were just joined by John Marshall from Church at the Park. So after Ashley, we're going to hear from John Marshall, and then we'll be open to questions after those two presentations. So take it away, Ashley.
All right, wonderful, Jim. Thank you so much for those kind words. And thank you everyone for inviting me to be here this evening. I really appreciate being able to share the successes and the future successes that Arch has been able to achieve, not only during the pandemic, but kind of moving forward and really revisioning what it looks like to address homelessness in our community. So I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen here. It always is kind of funny when I do it from one slide. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay, great, fantastic. As Jim stated, my name is Ashley Hamilton. I'm the Program Director of the Arches Project through Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency. Arches Project is specifically one department within Community Action focusing on adult and family homelessness. So the Arches Project covers all of Marion and Polk County, and to really synthesize what we do, we provide 4 distinct pillars of service, ranging from basic needs, supportive services, coordinated entry, which is essentially the identification, a triage, and service prioritization of unsheltered individuals in our community, as well as the true solution to homelessness, which is housing. So I'm going to go through each of these pillars really quickly today to give you guys a snapshot on everything we've been working on. Within our basic needs pillar is, of course, one of our biggest projects, the Day Center, which is right there next to Marion Square Park on Commercial. At that location, we're open Monday through Friday, and you can gain access to not only the shelter space, but we have on-site mailboxes. We have over 1,000 of those. You can get bus passes, hygiene kits. We're also on-site laundry and shower facilities. We provide 2 hot meals a day. And since opening this facility in 2019, so just before the pandemic, we've had over 65,000 duplicative visits to this location. And just a quick snapshot of the services we've provided this fiscal year. So that would be July of 2021 to January of 2022, we've been able to provide over 44,000 meals. We provided over 552 hygiene kits, and then 1,250 client referrals and client case management services. And so there's never a dull moment in that facility. Some additional services that we've onboarded in the Day Center include HIV screening and COVID vaccination. We've also partnered with JD Health and Wellness as an on-site primary health and health navigation provider, as well as access to Northwest Human Services West Salem Clinic. We do hold veterinary clinics on site for our unsheltered neighbors and their furry companions. We have access to bike storage. When temperatures drop really low, we're able to open up our Day Center much earlier in the morning, and we extend our hours into the evening so we can coincide with the region's warming shelters, so people always have a space to go, as well as opening specifically on holiday, because we believe homelessness occurs 24/7. It's not a Monday through Friday existence. And so we try to open on holidays and we try to open on weekends as much as possible. And then another branch of our basic needs services is another notable activity is our extreme weather response. And so this is when we're opening up warming shelters when temperatures drop below freezing in our community, or cooling shelters, or we've also opened in response to flooding as well as the air stagnation warnings back when we had the seasonal wildfires. Last year, specifically the 2020 to 2021 warming season, that was right in the middle of the pandemic. So we got really creative with our strategies in terms of offering shelter. So that included not only our congregate shelter model, but including hotels locally. So last season, we were able to grow our shelter bed capacity from just around 7,000 bed nights, which is the common metric for emergency shelters. So that means a per person, per bed per night measurement. We grew that from 7,000 to 16,000, just over 16,000 bed nights. And so we're on par to be around 8,000 for this current warming season. And we also provide warming contracts to our rural providers out in Marion and Polk County so that our unsheltered neighbors in rural environments also have access. And lastly, in our basic needs category, we have outreach. So we recognize, especially during the pandemic, that we can't be everywhere. We couldn't ask anyone from everywhere to come to us. We couldn't physically be inside a building, so we had to go to them. So we created very strategic mobile teams and service operations in order to go out into the community and meet people where they are at. So we do about, on average, 500 service transactions out in the field every month. So that could be case management, resource referral, housing assessments, or just the provision of basic needs supplies. Our second pillar is supportive services. So this is really the barrier removal element of our operation. So working with people to increase their income, increase their ability to get into housing. So that's our Veteran Service Office, as well as our tenant education series, or even accessing Oregon birth certificates. Our third pillar, I mentioned it briefly, is coordinated entry. So that is specifically housing assessment. So that's the identification, triage, and service prioritization of unsheltered individuals and moving them through the housing system. So this housing assessment takes place not only at Arches, but we also offer these on-site at partner locations, emergency access points, as well as in the camps via our outreach teams. We perform on average about 130 of these housing assessments per week. What coordinated entry also lets us do is it helps us better understand the unsheltered population. It helps us quantify their vulnerabilities, helps us understand who's in our community so we can build evidence-based programming. So just from today, I took a quick snapshot of this coordinated entry system. And so as of today, we have 775 households on our coordinated entry list awaiting housing opportunities. So that was comprised of 842 adults and 146 children. Of those households, 527 of them were actively unsheltered. So that distinction between those two numbers is 775 households on the active list. They could be either unsheltered, they could be in tenuous housing situation, they could be in emergency shelter situations. But of those 775, 527 are actively living in a place not meant for human habitation. So in a vehicle, outside, in a tent. So that's comprised of 659 individuals. And when we talk about really the metric of how we're looking at the health of our homeless system, is we always look at that chronic homeless number. The higher that is, the more that we know that once people fall into homelessness in our community, the resources aren't there for them to get out of homelessness. So after a certain period of time, they become chronically homeless. So as of today, our rate was at 39%, which is just a hair above that national average. And then, of course, as we suspected, the bulk of our unsheltered population are residing in Marion County over Polk County. And then, of course, the solution to homelessness is, of course, housing. So we offer a variety of housing programs at Arches, and I won't go through these all at length, but they're really contingent on the funding provider. Most of them come from the state, some foundation, federal, and city grants, and they're aimed at providing case management and rental assistance to an individual in apartments throughout all of Marion and Polk County. It's a scattered site model, really bringing in that element of client choice and working with them to build self-sufficiency and address any acute or chronic medical needs and health navigation and behavioral health support, so that in the end, by the time that service concludes, that they're going to be able to be up on their own 2 feet. And each of these programs offers somewhat of a different duration of assistance as contingent by the provider, but the average length of time is about 2 years. So just showing you some fantastic highlights of some of the growth opportunities we've been able to bring on board during COVID, of course. We opened up our veteran transitional project known as Tanner's Project. That's actually located on Center Street, just I think east of the upcoming Yaquina Hall and across from the state hospital. It is specifically for veterans, but it actually houses both male and female veterans. So what's unique about this facility is we can take unsheltered female veterans, which is the only location that does so in between Eugene and all the way up to Vancouver. So it's quite rare. And then on site, we have mental health supports, as well as case management and access to ongoing rental assistance once they're ready to graduate into their own apartment. So since opening this in, I believe it was, I'm getting my dates mixed up, it was October of 2021. So we just hit over a year now. We've served 34 veterans through this facility, and 16 of which have actually moved into permanent housing. And of course, we've worked with the city of Salem, and we opened up Redwood Crossings in the summer of 2021. So another COVID project, but this is really dedicated to bringing chronically homeless, the most vulnerable in our community, into a permanent supportive housing situation. So this is long-term housing for as long as they need it. And they can eventually graduate actually into a housing authority voucher. And on site, there's case management, health service navigation, and mental health supports. And this is about 37 beds. And the Tanner's Project was 36 beds, excuse me. And our most recent addition was the Arches Inn. So this is our new transitional shelter that we opened up off of Hawthorne. We did our grand opening in December of 2021. This is dedicated specifically right now for wildfire families who were impacted last Labor Day. Last Labor Day. It's an 80-room facility, but we're only able to occupy the first floor right now due to fire marshal restrictions. We're just making sure everything's getting up to code, but ultimately we'll be able to have 80. On that first floor, the bulk of which are dedicated to the wildfire impacted households, but we do have a balance of some rooms dedicated to a chronically homeless subset experiencing comorbidity and extreme mental health conditions. Physical health conditions. Ultimately, once we're able to successfully rehouse the wildfire families into their own homes and their own permanent living situations, this whole facility will open up entirely to the chronically homeless population. On site, there's 24/7 staffing, and we've also partnered with JD Health and Wellness on site for medical and mental health and addiction treatment. Just a couple other quick things. We just completed working with the COVID rent relief on behalf of the state of Oregon. We distributed over $30 million in emergency rental assistance to COVID impacted households since June of 2020, serving over 4,700 households in this community. So the average rental payment was around $7,800, covering around 6 months of back rent. However, it was not uncommon to see checks going out to landlords and back rent totaling over $40,000. And we were really happy that we were able to work specifically with culturally specific communities, with almost 50% of everyone we served being a self-reported from BIPOC or Latinx communities. And then, of course, we also run a grant program where we can fund other wonderful community service partners in their shelter work, because really the whole system is very much a continuum. We rely on the skills and expertise of each other to make sure that we have enough shelter beds, enough services to work for the individuals. And so what's next for Arches? A lot of still growth and expansion. We have a lot of dreams. We are working to expand shelter operations, working closely with the Emergency Management Office with efforts of trying to bring a recuperative care program into our community, and that's specifically designed for people who are exiting the hospital, but they can't exit into a shelter environment, or they can't exit or congregate shelter environment, or they can't exit to the street because of their health conditions. Where do they go? The hospital ends up either keeping them for long periods of time, which costs a lot, or they go into hotels. We're looking to bring in a recuperative care program where they not only would have independent shelter opportunities for that individual, but also being able to provide on-site behavioral health and rudimentary healthcare services. And then, of course, we were just recently awarded $1.5 million from Kaiser Permanente to bring in specifically a health-oriented housing program where high-impact users of the local emergency systems will get placed into housing, and so that we can work with them specifically to try to improve their quality of life, improve those ADLs, those activities of daily living, and in turn, hopefully provide some housing stabilization long-term for them. So still a lot on the horizon for us. And we're just really excited for this new space of really looking at that intersection between health and housing, because we know that it's really hard to separate. You really got to have both. So I know I'm probably over time a little bit, so I will pause here so that our Church in the Park partner can take it away.
Well, good evening. I'm John Marshall. I get to serve as a pastor with Church in the Park, as well as manage our safe parking program. And it is a real privilege to be with all of you tonight. So thank you for the invitation. I will do my best to follow up that presentation with some of my own slides, but that was excellent. So Ashley, thank you for leading us off. Let's see. All right. Has everyone seen my screen okay? All right. So at Church in the Park, we are super inspired by the image of a banquet table. And as we try to figure out what it means to serve folks on the margin well, this has been kind of our guiding theme of bringing people to a common table, and where we can see each other in light of our full humanity more clearly, where those who are at the table begin to enter into service for one another. This has been our mission for the last 15 years, although it's probably really only been in the last year and a half that the city of Salem has come to know who Church of the Park is, probably because we're the ones running these weird micro shelter communities that are popping up in neighborhoods. But from the very beginning, we have wanted to understand how to operationalize relationships and hope in the interest of moving humans into greater stability and greater health and greater wholeness. And so right now, our three pillars are navigation, resource navigation, workforce development, and transitional shelters. So in the continuum of care that moves someone from living in a tent into a little bit more stable housing, this is kind of the continuum we understand, and we find ourselves right at the beginning with the square that says outreach and intake and coordinated assessment. So a lot of the things that Ashley was talking about, we get to do as well with the people we serve. And then as we build these micro shelter communities, we are finding our lane as a managed site provider. And that allows us to work with and alongside those we serve, asking them what their goals for their life are, and then doing our best to break down the barriers that stand in their way, so that we are the first, really, we want to be the first step for anyone off the street and into stability. And so hopefully we are the ones for connecting people and building bridges to those transitional housing and supportive housing opportunities that then can move them into more permanent housing. Programmatically, we find kind of three areas where we are best equipped to serve people. Primarily, we offer a day center on Turner Road right next to Cascade Gateway Park. This is our building that has been our church building for the last 12 years. And Monday through Friday, it operates as a day center. So a place of respite and recharge for folks who need to get out of just the elements and be in a warm place during the winters or a cool place in the summers, where we have a dedicated staff of case managers on site, meeting with people every single day to help problem solve. We have a partnership with the Marion Polk Food Share. So on Tuesdays and Fridays, we hand out about 50 grocery boxes to families who are either living in the park or in vehicles or are just food insecure. We have laundry services on site. And so our laundry machines are running constantly throughout the week. We also provide showers in partnership with Arches and United Way. So once a week, we have a shower truck on site for people to get clean. We also have a community garden led by two pretty stellar volunteers. This is Juanita and this is Charlie, and they are coaching our community members how to sustain themselves and their family through gardening and food sustainability strategies. And then we have in the past been super fortunate to partner with a lot of the health services in the area to provide health connects once a month. So multiple mobile teams, as you can see here, a vaccination bus, as well as mobile dental clinics, mobile nurses and doctors on site, Northwest Human Services, anyone and everyone who has the capacity to provide medical care will come to these Health Connect gatherings once a month. And we're hopeful that we get to continue that into the future. Ultimately, our hope is that this location is the microcosm for community building and relationship. So this is Brent and Tanya and Joe. And last summer, Joe was living in the park in that handmade A-frame structure on wheels. And he, in August, when Cascade Gateway Park closed down, he was inches away from receiving permanent housing through Easter Seals, but needed about 2 weeks before he could get into a stable place. So we allowed him to put his lay frame on our property, and his front door became a gathering space for relationship and folks who just needed a place to sit and be in relationship with each other. And this image to me is the example of what beautiful things we get to see every single day in the lives of those that we're with in community. We also get to operate as the service provider for Safe Parking, which is a City of Salem program. We are kind of the coordinators, but this program is offered in relationship with other churches in the City of Salem who have offered their parking lots as places to be for folks to be overnight or long-term who are living in their vehicles. Because right now, there is no legal place for someone to park their car in Salem. And so having just a place to get rest during the night makes it 1,000 times easier to problem solve during the day. So this is where I get to spend most of my time and my effort in providing service and hospitality to others who have no sheltering option available to them. But we are discovering that this micro shelter option is kind of where we can really make a dent in partnership with other agencies in the city to provide sheltering for those who need it most. So this is Roy, who is a manager at one of our shelter locations, and Michael, who's a lead, a shift lead as well. Right now, as the end of 2021, our Village of Hope location, which is at the old DMV on Portland Silverton Road, we got to serve 104 unique individuals in the first 9 months of operation. And I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but we reported about 37% of our exits were to a more positive destination than the micro shelter, which is a really beautiful number and a really encouraging number. For our second location, which is dedicated to sheltering women and families in the first 3 months of operation, we got to serve 87 unique individuals, and 72% of our exits were into more positive locations. I would love to show a video that kind of highlights one of our residents and staff members. If you cannot hear the video or hear the audio to this video, will someone just indicate for me?
It's soothing. I think it's soothing. The sound of rain hitting the roof brings joy to Mariah Morgan. People don't realize the little things until they're gone. The last time I had a roof over my head was, I would say, the end of 2017. Since then, she had lived on the street in a tent. I lost my job, I lost my car, I lost my house. A meth habit took over her life. And at that point, I didn't have a purpose. I didn't feel worth anything. The love for her kids helped her beat the addiction, and she found much needed support.
Church of the Park is a nonprofit, but a church, just providing supports to those that need it.
Church at the Park had planned to manage an outdoor homeless village on this city-owned lot along Wallace Road Northwest in Salem. But the project was nixed because the property is a wetland prone to flooding. While that plan fell through, another one on Salem's Northeast Portland Road is up and running.
Recently, we've been partnering with the city on providing micro-shelter communities for people who will transition into housing and into more stable living situations from the streets.
The micro-shelter spaces provide 2 beds and a table. Secure doors mean residents can leave for work and not have to worry about theft.
2 adults and possibly 1 or 2 children in with them. And so we're able to have, a small family together in sheltered spaces.
The Church at the Park micro shelters here in Salem opened about a month ago. There are currently 30 pods with 65 people living on the property, including Mariah. It's a place where you can call home for the time being. It's also a place offering access to mental health services and other crucial resources on site.
I'm doing really good. I've been clean for over a year.
Not only did Mariah find a home here, she also found purpose.
We're residents here and I'm an employee here too.
Working as a receptionist,
I can help others and share my experience.
an example to others that with a roof over your head, it is possible to reclaim the little things symbolic for a better life.
Once you have them back, you want to hold on to it. You know, once I want to get a place to live again, you know, my own place again. And I'm going to hold on to it.
Christelle Kumwe, KGW News.
So that is just one of the beautiful stories that we encounter through our work. Mariah continues to serve as a receptionist for us, and she is the example of what is possible when we can provide stability for someone, as well as opportunity to serve others and to gain purpose through employment. So, like I said, one of the ways that we find that we can support those experiencing homelessness is to provide job opportunities through Church of the Park. And Mariah has been a wonderful addition to our team. In recent weeks, she has courageously provided testimony both to city and state legislators. And we're really, really excited to watch her grow into greater health and stability. To give you just a little bit of a glimpse of where our footprint is in the city. So the star, that is our main navigation hub at our church building on Turner Road. These two red dots up north, these are the locations of our current operating micro shelter villages. And then these blue squares are the 6 churches that are currently hosting safe parking. So we continue to find ourselves in all different corners of Salem, but we understand that we are only able to do that in partnership with other agencies like Arches and Union Gospel Mission and churches, in partnership with the city of Salem and the city council. We do not want to be naive at all and think that we are doing this work on our own, but we are only able to do what we do because there are others in the city who are willing to partner with us and care well for those who are on the margins. Our next micro shelter location is going to be at this location that is on Center Street, directly across the street from Safeway. Right now, the plan is for our current Village of Hope shelter, which is at the old DMV, to move in the middle of April to this location. The current site has 40 pods. We have capacity to double that number to 80 when we move to this location. So we will increase our ability to host more individuals. Each of these orange squares with the E's in them, those are the pods. And as you can see, we'll have gathering spaces, hospitality spaces. The blue squares kind of in that lower right corner will be where our portable restrooms are. We'll have showers on site that will be operational every single day. So we are excited to get to operationalize this location soon and begin hosting more people than we currently are. This is what the shelter will look like on that site. It's manufactured by a group called Adomo, located in West Salem. And it really is pretty simple, four walls and a roof, but these come with pretty significant insulation to keep people warm in the winter months and cool in the summer months, as well as heating and air conditioning power inside. Our hope is that each of the 8 wards in Salem would be host to some sort of residential community, whether that is a robust micro shelter community that is hosting 100 individuals or something a little bit smaller. We know that it is not equitable to expect just one area of the city to be host to residential communities. So our dream is that as a city that we would develop our coalition and collaborative power to host people in relational capacities. And I'll just end with this story of Stephen and Kenna. I met them when I started working at Church of the Park 2 years ago. They were residents of Cascade Gateway Park. That was their home. And pretty quickly within their move to the park, they began volunteering with Church of the Park, beginning serving their neighbors and developing a capacity to find purpose and grace and patience and healing care for both themselves and the people that they were living with. They eventually both joined our staff, and they continue to be on staff. And I'm really pleased to share that last summer they moved into an apartment for the first time and were able to regain custody of Kenna's son and are experiencing really beautiful growth into stability. And the effects that we see are some pretty radical examples of care and hospitality to the people we're serving in our communities. So they are proof to me that when we can provide dignifying opportunities to individuals to receive care, to begin working and problem solving in relational ways, that then those individuals begin to reciprocate back toward the community. And it's a privilege to be a part of Church of the Park and to be in partnership with other groups like Arches who are doing similar work, because we are seeing the transformation happen before our eyes. So I will end there, and I know that it'll be helpful for question and response. So however I can be helpful to you all, I would love to be that.
Thank you, John. That was very inspirational and very informative. So we're now open to questions for Ashley and for John. And if you'll just raise your hand, I'll call on you. And we'll start with Roz.
Thank you. I guess my question's to John mainly. What's the status of the micro shelters? Are there enough right now available, built and ready to use, to totally fill the 80 spots at the new village there on Center Street?
Yeah, so our current plan is to move the pods that we're currently using right now at Village of Hope, and to use to transition out of those current models into the ones manufactured by Adomo. So right now we don't have all 80 manufactured, but we do have some of them manufactured. And hopefully by the middle of May, we'll have all 80 on sale.
Okay, thanks. Well, maybe part of that, do you know yet if there's money to go ahead and have the additional ones to be built?
Yeah, so as we partnered with Hazel Patton and Emil Graziani, and they did some really beautiful community initiatives to raise money for the micro shelters. Within about 3 months, we had raised enough for 120 micro shelters to be built. So 80 is not quite 120. So we have more than enough to be able to operationalize both this next site as well as any additional sites in the future.
Okay, good.
Okay, Victor, I saw your hand.
I was just going to follow up on Roz's comment or question and ask if they needed more money, but apparently you have sufficient.
Well, my bosses would probably shoot me if I said stop giving us money. It's only going to increase our capacity to serve. But right now, for the next about 3 or 4 months, all of our operations around macro shelters are covered by the generosity of Salem.
Who else has a question? Raise your hand, please. I'll ask a question then. This is for Ashley, and this may be a sore subject, but recently the tents at Marion Square Park were cleared out and they're gone. If you drive by there today, it looks quite different. And I think a lot of people are curious, what happened to all those people?
Well, that's a great question, Jim. You know, I can, from the heart, it's always been difficult to watch these sweeps occur just outside our windows. It does seem like this happens every year or two. It just gets harder each and every time because the question still remains, where do these people go? You know, we get reports, and what we do know is they scatter throughout other places of the city seeking refuge and safety and reconnecting with each other and creating other small communities. You know, they move west, they move south, they move north. And the cycle will continue, and it's absolutely devastating. It's heartbreaking. But what we also know is that between Arches and the expansion of UGM, Safe Sleep, and all the wonderful work Churches Park is doing, and many other gracious providers in our community, we are working diligently to increase shelter capacity and to increase housing opportunities so that this cycle will one day end. This is not the dream. This isn't for anyone, and this is not the end solution. But it seems to be a very unfortunate pattern that we are in now.
Thank you. Who else has a question? I see Brian's son.
Yes. So I'm going to follow up on what Ross started with, and then someone else followed on that one. Okay, so if oh no, I'm not even going to say if I understand correctly. So what is going to happen? So you're saying when the DMV site closes down, and those are, you're calling them pods.
I do.
Okay, not micro shelters.
Okay. I personally use the two terms interchangeably.
Okay, very good. So are you saying though that those people that transition when the Safeway location opens up, that there will be 80 spots? You said perhaps by May. Okay, but those will be by that specific construction company, correct?
Correct.
What's going to happen to the pods at DMV?
Good. So those pods were purchased by the city of Salem. And so in good faith and good partnership, our commitment is to repurpose them and continue using them. Right now, the plan is to turn them into office spaces on our locations, because for example, the Safeway location, it's just an empty field. There are no buildings, there are no structures. And so we have to get creative with how do we provide, safe and confidential spaces for people to have conversations with case managers and similar purposes. So we will find whatever purpose we can, including office space, to reuse them. And then as we expand, hopefully, into new locations, there'll just continue to be reasons why we'll need those structures.
Okay, good.
So Pam, do you have a question? You're muted.
Yes, my question is to John. Well, either one of you actually. Do you have, I haven't looked yet on your website, but do you have opportunities for those of us who like to volunteer doing anything at these sites, or what are some of your volunteer opportunities? Give me a couple examples.
Sure. So the easiest places we find to have volunteers partner with us.
Oh.
Yeah. So we've got a couple of really easy volunteer opportunities. One is just at our donation center, helping us sort through all the donations we get and triaging where we can send them so that they're used by those who need them. Our food share on Tuesdays and Fridays is a really beautiful opportunity for folks to use their hands in a tangible way to package food boxes and hand them to folks. We have a volunteer coordinator, April, who's just a magician at finding places for people to fit in, and there are opportunities on our website, churchofthepark.org, where people can just kind of sign up and see where there's opportunity.
And I would love to jump in there as well.
Okay, thank
So
you.
we certainly have volunteer opportunities affiliated with the Arches Project. I went ahead and dropped our volunteer sign up link into the chat. It's through the platform Volunteer Hub. Our primary volunteer opportunities right now are at our warming shelters. And so that's kind of helping staff some of our shifts, but it is also working along some of our employees as well. After I'm done with my little spiel here, I'll also drop the link to our Salem warming website because we have on-site training materials for interested volunteers there. So you can look at training videos and training manuals, but some other additional volunteer opportunities, because we're not all night owls, is in our day center. We're going to be opening that back up again to help serve our lunches through our shower truck. And then we're going to be looking to expand some of our volunteer opportunities into some of our residential facilities, Tanner and Arches. So keep a lookout, Arches in, excuse me. So keep a lookout for those now that the pandemic is subsiding, because we're really interested to get the community more involved.
Great. Okay, who else has a question? We have just a few minutes left. Roz.
Thank you.
This question's for Ashley. Could you describe the connection between Community Action Agency and United Way, and how do they differ?
Oh, great question. So I'm trying to be a good way to put it. So they are definitely two distinct organizations and agencies. We both have separate 501c3s. We have separate employment identification numbers. And so we are two separate entities. However, I do believe we have a core mission in terms of abating suffering and anti-poverty work and really building up what we see to be missions and values of community partners and trying to institutionalize continuums of effective service. But we each go about that in different ways. And so Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency, the organization I'm a part of, we focus on providing anti-poverty work for kind of in two distinct realms in childhood education and development, and then in homelessness and housing. And then United Way, so Mid-Willamette Valley United Way, they're really focused on a variety of different service projects. And I think just their bandwidth's a little different in what they're doing. However, we do work very closely together. Some really good examples include the shower truck. That was a really good example of a gap in the community that they recognize, the ability for people to have access to hygiene supplies and take a shower, and what that does not only the mental health but their physical health. They raised the funds and they brought that shower truck to this community, but they weren't able to be the service provider. So once the shower truck arrived, they worked with us and gifted us the shower truck so we could bring that out to everyone in need. Another great example also is United Way. They opened Safe Sleep because, again, they saw a service gap in there being a lack of women's shelter bed opportunities. There just wasn't enough given the ratio of women in our unsheltered community. And they opened that, and what we do with our grant program, we actually finance. We help finance some of Safe Sleep in their shelter operations. So it's really a give and take back and forth, but it is definitely two distinct service operations, but we do operate in partnership quite often.
Brian, do you have another question? Your hand is still
Yes,
up.
yes,
Okay, this is going to be the last question.
Well, thank you.
Congratulations.
Okay. Yeah, the big winner. Okay, so just to follow up, Pam, you were asking about volunteer opportunities. Okay, well, something else that is also coming down the pike is I'm a member of the Marion County Solid Waste Advisory Council, and our big project has been and is coming to completion is a playbook that groups, organizations, neighborhood associations can, or just groups of volunteers can come together, have this playbook will give you everything you need to know about going into an unsheltered camp or another setting and to provide safe, hygienic, solid waste management. It'll be provided through the county, but I know that it's also going to go through the Navigation Center with Gretchen Bennett. And I'm sure Arches is going to be connected with it, and I bet Church and some of the other groups. So this is going to be something that will help for people that want to do something like that. It'll be, in a sense, supplemental to what the county garbage haulers are doing, but it will provide, again, a playbook that will help people be able to know exactly how you do this, how you get it. Then all that stuff will go free, from what I understand, free of charge to the burner, to the waste burner. So there won't be a charge for if you have a pickup or something like that, and you take that out there. You will not be charged for that, and they'll show you the whole process of getting that set up, if you're willing to do that.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Well, we've run out of time. We have other things to get to in our agenda. So I want to thank John and Ashley for their presentations tonight. You were both terrific. And I think we're so well informed now about all the wonderful work that you're doing. And we've made progress. I talk to people that say, well, why isn't anything happening? Those people are just uninformed, because we've done a lot and you're doing a lot, and we appreciate it so much. So thank you so much for being with us tonight. Let's give them some applause.
Thank you.
Thanks for the invitation. Have a good night.
Okay, bye-bye. So the next thing on our agenda tonight is neighborhood issues, concerns, and announcements. So the floor is open for neighborhood concerns, issues, and announcements. Anybody have one?
Jim?
All is well?
Jim, I do.
Okay.
It's actually a question for you, Jim. I believe it was in our December minutes. We approved. It's regarding the logo committee and or the logo setup and moving forward. Are there any updates?
The short answer is no.
Okay.
So you can talk to me offline about that if you want to.
Okay. Very good.
Any other neighborhood issues, concerns, announcements? Wow, we don't have any? Okay, I see we have a visitor from North Gate neighborhood. I want to welcome you to SCAN.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What are you all doing? Are you lurking?
Yes.
Well, you're always welcome to come to SCAN.
We need to see what the other associations are doing that brings us closer to you and everybody else. And, if there are any concerns, then we just try to help each other. That's what we try to do.
Well, I love that. We'll have to come visit you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay. Well, no announcements, concerns. We're moving on then to committee reports and chair reports. John Christensen was not able to join us tonight, but he did send a written report, which I think we all received. And Roz, you sent a written report. Do you have any more to say tonight?
Yeah, I'll just add, I didn't talk about this in the written report because I didn't have much to say about it yet, but the board knows about our Salem projects been going on following, and now it's at the point, there'll be this hearing in front of Planning Commission on the specifics now, the actual code amendments that would implement the changes that are proposed for the comprehensive plan. So the land use committee is right now reviewing a draft of testimony, and that testimony is based on the position SCAN has already taken on the various aspects of the comp plan revision, but the draft testimony goes into a lot more specific language than just the language in those previous statements, because now we have all this more detailed information of actual code amendments. So we're in the process of reviewing that. If the committee feels that, and all of it is based on our positions, but like I say, additional language. So if we feel that it doesn't go beyond SCAN adopted position, then we will probably just go ahead and send it to the Planning Commission hearing, and of course, send it to the board also. There are some new issues, some new changes in the code that have popped up that I have not seen before, and I've been following this really close. So as a committee, we're going to talk about what, if anything, we want to say about those issues. And if we even want to include them in our testimony in terms of being in support of some of them or opposed to some of them. But that may go beyond existing SCAN positions. And if so, we'll try to run something by the board real quick. Although actually the land use committee, as you know, has a majority of the board on it. So maybe we'll just go with it if we all actually agree on anything. So that planning commission hearing is March 15. So that's just next week. So we're really kind of strapped for time. So we may not, have time to bring something to the full board and get a vote recorded and stuff. Anyway, I just wanted you to know we're working on that. And things are really moving on it fast now. It'll also, of course, go to council. They'll have their own hearing. But I think the Planning Commission recommendation will carry a lot of weight. So this opportunity, we definitely want to take advantage of to get some changes made in the proposal, which we've talked about before, on the intensity of the mixed use along Commercial Street. So
Thank
I'll
you,
leave it at
Roz.
that.
Any questions for Roz? I had one. I can't recall if this is in your written report, but is your committee following the proposed changes to the sign code, which isn't exactly land use, but it does deal with the Planning Commission?
Yeah, we are. We haven't talked about it yet, but actually we're going to have a little emergency meeting in the next few days just on that Planning Commission testimony. But at our next regular meeting, yeah, that'll be on the agenda. And as you know, they're just doing some work sessions now, and John Christensen, kind of encouraged us to go towards providing recommendations now during the work session, because they always provide opportunity for public comment, and they're kind of looking for what does the public think about this so far. So I think we will be maybe providing some input on that.
Okay, thank you.
At one of the subsequent work sessions.
Great. Victor.
Just a general comment that city staff made it very difficult to figure out what exactly they're proposing to do, because they provided a clean version of the proposal and a clean version of the existing, and you kind of left to interpolate between the two and figure out what's changing, which is pretty tough with 42 pages of city code.
Right. You had
to
watch if you watch the Planning Commission meeting, they had a very nice PowerPoint, and you can still watch it on the YouTube channel. I recommend
I let
it.
staff know I felt it was difficult to really see what they're proposing to change, because they didn't have a marked up copy of current code. But I will say, since we've talked about signs, I feel pretty good based on that work session, and Jim, you obviously watched it too. I feel pretty good about the direction. We've got a good, in my view, good Planning Commission for the most part. And a lot of the proposed changes in this for the temporary sign code. They so far are just looking at code for the temporary signs. That was moving in the right direction. A lot of it was additional regulation and updates of the regulation on types of signs that didn't used to exist, like these balloon signs. So if anything, they're tightening up the code in general, I would say.
They also have a full-time code compliance officer who apparently is only working on signs, which is really much needed. And that was really good to hear. She was at the meeting and it sounds like she's really busy because there's lots of violations.
Well, and she's going to be doing outreach for neighborhood associations. And I was going to suggest to Lori that we get her scheduled if people would find that helpful.
Yes.
So there's a
Okay,
lot of
John,
detail in that sign code.
do you have a question, John?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to look at the stuff. Well, I should, but I'll probably get around to it by the end of the week. But as far as enforcement goes, is there any meaningful enforcement that causes them to think twice before violating the sign code?
Yeah, they're finding people and they're confiscating signs, which they've never done much of.
But
because
it's
they didn't have the staff, is what they told us. But now they have a full-time person that's working on it. She showed a picture in her they showed a picture in the presentation of a truck with temporary signs loaded up in the back that were pulled and taken away. And that's, they did talk about political signs too. And it sounds like, if these candidates put their signs in the public right away, they're going to take them away this year, which was good to hear.
Yeah, are the fines painful enough that they actually will cause somebody to think twice?
I don't know, but I agree with Roz. We should invite this new person to a SCAN meeting and she could answer that question. So I think I'm going to move us ahead unless anybody has a question for Roz. Okay, you're up, Victor, with the Transportation Committee.
Thank you, Jim. I sent the Transportation Committee report to you, board members, electronically on Monday. Jim, are you going to share in the committee report, we have a resolution which I'm proposing, if it's approved by the board, to go and deliver in public comments to the, let's see if I get this mouthful correct, the Infrastructure Bond Engagement Steering Committee meeting on Friday, March 18th. They meet at 1 p.m. by Zoom. And also in writing. Part of the in writing is to emphasize that I talk very slowly, and there's only so much talking you can get in 3 minutes. Now, after I sent the committee report out, there were several different comments, which I've sort of wordsmithed in here into this committee, their initial committee draft, and I sort of take as friendly amendments. One was basically the comment about a usable network, which we really don't have for the bicycle projects around the city. There are some of them joined together, but that seems to be more by chance than anything. John Christensen seemed to be concerned about the historic bridge, the reference to the historic bridge. There is a lot of different transportation pots of money that can be used to repair and rehabilitate bridges, but they're all available through the Department of Transportation. And then finally, and I think most substantively, was Roz's comment that we should say something about pedestrian crossings across arterial streets that would be supportive of the mixed-use development zones. They're coming in the Salem comp plan amendment. We can cite the two examples here in SCAN of South Commercial and Liberty Street, where if you really don't have good pedestrian crossing, if you leave it to pedestrians to take their chances, both streets become essentially barriers because the traffic's pretty fast moving and plentiful, shall we say. Jim, if you could entertain a motion to adopt the friendly amendments, I would appreciate it.
Really? Why don't you just recommend this from the committee?
Well, I would recommend it from the committee if that's the appropriate thing
that
to
way
do.
it doesn't need a motion if it's a committee
Doesn't need a second.
recommendation.
Okay.
And I don't think it needs a second either.
No,
But
as a committee reported, it does not need a second.
So I think what I'll do now is open it up for questions and discussion. Are we just going to leave this on the screen? Is that a good idea?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Who has a
Jim, can I
question?
say something?
Yeah.
Yes, Ross.
Okay, my bullet there about the pedestrian crossing lights. In the parens, it says Commercial Street and Liberty Street. I didn't have Liberty Street in my proposal, and I would suggest and the reason why, I mean, I would delete Liberty Street, just say Commercial Street, which that example doesn't even need to be in there. I put it in there so the board would know I'm talking about Commercial Street because it goes through SCAN. Anyway, Liberty Street should not be in there because it does not have mixed use zoning along it. Its Commercial Street does have mixed use zoning proposed for like the entire length of it.
Is that a friendly amendment?
Well, let me push back just a little bit, Roz. I know that our Salem put the mixed use on Commercial Street South, but I think because if we look at Liberty Street, most of Liberty Street right now is taken up with relatively recent commercial development. And I think this city staff may have been thinking that is unlikely to be redeveloped in any way. There are vacant lots on the Commercial Street side, and there are also some older structures that might be redeveloped in a reasonable time frame. My reason for continuing to leave Liberty in there is that we have had a problem with crossings on Liberty. People have come and asked us to support crossings on Liberty because Liberty is such a speedway. And I think we still need to kind of keep that out there. There are other places in the city, and I'm only using the example of arterials. There are many examples of arterials where they're putting mixed use development that will need better pedestrian crossing than currently exists. Is that sufficient, Ross, to leave it in?
Well, I mean, I agree that better pedestrian crossing is certainly needed on Liberty too, but the language is about the mixed use development.
Okay.
And there is no mixed use zone on Liberty.
Okay.
So it just sounds, it's not factual.
Okay,
to
Uncle.
include it there.
And Victor, I would point out that it just says, for example. So it's not meant to be exhaustive anyway.
No, it is not meant to be exhaustive.
So I kind of like Roz's logic.
Okay.
Roz always has good logic. We count on Roz for logic. So now John Prodosky has a question.
Yeah, getting back to that, the crossings for Liberty and commercial pedestrian crossings. At many of our scan board meetings, it has been mentioned that both streets, I'm emphasizing both, are major impediments for people to walk in the neighborhood and to do things, if you live on one side, to do things on the other side. I think they're both equally important. And that, that's just that's an observation. Then the other thing has to do with the comment, Victor, about pavement preservation. I agree with what's being said, but increasingly when I drive throughout Salem, I see streets with alligator, which is basically pavement that can't be repaired. Those sections have to be rebuilt, which is very important. And I have no idea of the magnitude of the problem or the extent of the problem. And how do we, in our testimony, emphasize that if we don't preserve pavement, we're going to have to replace it, and we don't have the funds to do it.
John, if I might, you got to remember I'm a transportation nerd who worked for the Oregon Department of Transportation for a lot of years. Pavement preservation is a term of art. And what they mean by that, what highway types mean by that is basically structural overlays that fundamentally rebuild the pavement surface. And in the case of city streets, you might recall about more than a decade ago, Commercial Street was basically ground out because there'd been so many overlays over the years. Commercial Street pavement was basically ground out, and some of the bad utility cuts were repaired, and then a thick overlay was, a lot of asphalt was put on to rebuild the street. And I think in a lot of instances, that's what has to be done. And the idea is that there would be a significant pot of money of the city envisions, or the city staff envision, about half of this bond proceeds going for streets and sidewalks, and a significant portion of what goes to streets really needs to be for pavement preservation. There's basically rebuilding the street.
Okay, so
they're pretty far gone.
Yes, they are.
Okay. Can we move on? Does that answer your question, John?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for Victor? I had a comment, Victor. When you're presenting this on the 18th, could you also remind the committee that SCAN submitted a resolution in favor of 2 branch libraries?
I will do that.
Thank you. Just a friendly reminder.
Is this okay?
Okay, other questions for Victor? Can I take this down from the screen?
Yes, please.
And we need to vote on this. So I'm going to do it this way. Is there anyone that objects to this recommendation from our transportation committee? And you know what? I'm not sure we have a quorum anymore.
Well, we've still got 7.
We do? Okay, good. Don't anybody leave. Does anyone object to this recommendation? Okay, good job, Victor.
Thank you.
I'm going to declare that it passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Victor. Good work.
You're all welcome.
Okay, well, a lot of people have left. We're the survivors. So next month, Lori and I plan to hold a candidate forum at SCAN. And we will invite our 3 mayoral candidates to come to the SCAN meeting and make a stump speech and answer questions. And we will also invite Linda Nishioka, our council candidate, to come to the SCAN meeting next month. So that's what the agenda is going to be next month. And we'll try to get community people to come. It's really hard. You know, I posted this meeting twice on Nextdoor, twice on Facebook, and that doesn't work very well, frankly.
Oh, we actually got, at one point, we had 3 people who were not staff and who appear to
Yeah.
be neighbors
Yeah.
attending. So
Yeah.
it worries me that we're losing board members.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that was just, I mean, a lot of them, like Jeff Schumacher had a good excuse, and John Christensen had a good excuse, and Lori had a good excuse. So it was just one of those things. I think we need to get back to meeting at South Salem High School. I think people are tired of Zoom meetings. Some people are in Zoom meetings all day. And then, you know, it's like, do I want to go to another one at 6:30? No. So hopefully very soon we'll be back at South High. And then we should really make a big effort to rebuild our attendance at these meetings. Okay, does anybody else have anything to contribute for the good of the order?
You know, I'll just mention that League of Women Voters and CCTV are also doing candidate forums. They'll be
Okay.
televised on CCTV, and I think they'll be repeating them, you know, throughout the election
Good.
season. So
Okay.
that's another chance for people to view, you know, the candidates.
Great.
Answering the same question, but to each candidate for comparative purposes.
And I would just say one interesting thing is, if you don't know, is that our SCAN board member, Mark Wigg, is running for county commissioner against Colm Willis. So I thought he'd be here tonight to announce his candidacy, but I guess he's out raising money or something. But anyway, I thought that was very interesting, and I think it's great, because that would have been an uncontested race if Mark hadn't have jumped in. So that's good. Okay, well, I think I'll bring us to a close. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.